All right, good to go. Thank you. Like I said, Matt, my name's Matt Fisher, Matthew Fisher. I work with Clemson Extension. That's South Carolina. I guess I get kind of spoiled in just saying Clemson, thinking people know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, so this is going to walk through some work we started doing, and it surrounds the Climate Smart initiative that came out 2 years ago and was initiated last year, and some data that we've been able to get off of that. So we'll just dive into it. It's an analysis of the poultry litter purchases in South Carolina. And to give you guys, here we go, give you guys an idea of what we're looking at in South Carolina. Poultry production by cash receipts is our largest agricultural enterprise in the state, with roughly about 280 million birds running through the state on average. That's including broilers and layers, and then the supporting pullet industry there too. We're going to talk mainly today about forage production or hay production, and how that relates to beef cattle industry in South Carolina. So it's important to know we've got 295,000 total cattle and calves in the state. We're like 35th in the United States when it comes to the inventory, but we're a small state at the same time. Forage production, by the metrics USDA uses, forage production in the state's actually the fourth most valuable commodity in the state in terms of dollars of production, market value. It beats out peaches. And when I give talks throughout the state, that really blows people's mind because we're the second largest peach producer in the country. So that's kind of the background on some of this in this climate smart thing, and I'll dive into that in a moment. But really, the last bullet point there is what we really started honing in on, is poultry litter. And my job with Extension is I'm self-appointed, I guess, self-titled, the beef livestock and forage economist. It sounds fancy, it's a lot of words, but I give talks all across the state in the Southeast, talking to producers, talking to government groups, and talking about the the business side behind our livestock and forage production. And I always say forage production is one everybody forgets about at the end of the day, because in most every state, you'll be shocked to know it's up in the top four when it comes to market value of production in your state. So point being, poultry litter. It's hugely used, widely used in the state, in the Southeast, I'm sure nationally too. It's a byproduct of the poultry industry, but it's a non-reported market. And what do I say when I say it's non-reported? We have a hard time really condensing down the availability. We have a hard time finding a good price point on it. And we also are curious about the quality. And we just got done talking about manure analysis and things like that. It can be variable, and that's the way it is. So that's kind of what we wanted to use this for. So to kind of dive down into this whole climate smart thing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or not. South Carolina, Clemson and South Carolina State partnered, which is the 94 land grant. So we partnered together, came up with Climate Smart South Carolina. Goal of the pilot project: increase acreage, number of farmers using cover crops, prescribed grazing. Basically, better practices, or what we defined as better practices for production. So specifically in our state, we focused, and there's other states that have done this, we focused on the timber industry. We focused on leafy greens, which those that may not be from the South, we're talking collards and turnip greens and things like that, for beef forage production, and peanuts as a fourth commodity. So those are the four commodities in this Climate Smart program. Again, we're talking beef here because we're talking poultry litter as a fertilization. The three program practices that were available are incorporation of legumes, prescribed grazing, and then while I'm talking today is the poultry litter as fertilization. To give a price point on it, there is money behind these programs. So it's kind of a pass through from the feds through the university to the farmer at the end of the day. They are being compensated $80 an acre for using poultry litter as a fertilizer or a soil amendment, however you want to call it. That'll be interesting to keep note of here in a moment when we start talking about some of the data that we got out of this. So 68 producers across the state participated. Well, 68 producers participated in the poultry litter program. 48 producers provided us detailed responses, and in those responses, we've got the type of litter, broiler, egg, or turkey, prices paid, delivery date, application rate, whether it was custom spread or not, county level location of application, which is going to be something to talk about, and the sample analysis and storage. And we just got done hearing about sample analysis. The neat thing about this is I can tie sample analysis to the price paid for that for that individual sample. So we can start looking at individual prices per unit of nutrient and what that looks like for the producer. Again, just to give you a quick overview, this is South Carolina. The left-hand side is west. That really didn't come through well on this. But anyhow, left-hand side is the western, or we're going to call the upstate. To the right or towards the coast of that red line, we're going to call the midland for the moving forward, just so you guys have an idea. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it. Average price per ton of the litter based on the region of the farm and the season applied. So as we can see, uh, it is statistically significant, the price difference between region. So the mid-state, and it's kind of flopped, I should have done this a little different, but the mid-state, that red line of the coast, has a higher price point than the upstate to the western tip. Um, I think that's interesting. And there's going to be a whole lot of, we'll see what's to come because again, we're in the first year of this data set. We've got 4 more years of this data coming. So I'll go ahead and kind of break character or break my organization right here because it's going to be a little easier to explain. The mid-state, what we see there, you notice the higher prices, they are statistically significantly higher than what we see in the upstate. That mid-state region is where a majority of our row crop production is being done. Now, conversely, the upstate, you see we've got a higher sample, an N of 25 participants versus an N of 20 in the mid-state. The N of 25, the upstate's where the majority of our cattle production is. So it's kind of interesting to see that. And again, this is just 1 year set of data, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out moving forward. Overall, the sweet spot for me, for what I do, what we really wanted to kind of drive down to a little bit, is this $24.40 number right here. That kind of gives us some kind of benchmark to go off of on where we are with prices of litter. Now, the one caveat to that is this is just for the product delivered to the farm. This does not include any spreading rates. We were able to capture those spreading rates in there, but we didn't have that for this. Back to to back my point up about the geographic break in production across the state. I mentioned the upstate's majority of our cattle production. This whole program's geared towards beef cattle forage production. So it's no surprise 74% of our sample was located in that upstate region overall. 19 respondents unable to locate litter in a timely manner. 2 forages that we have, perennials, fescue and Bermuda grass, Bahia grass. They're pretty finicky about getting fertilized on time. And if producers weren't able to get it in that window, they didn't apply. So that explains that 19 number there. So from our analysis, what our samples look like on this is we're showing ammonium, the mean 10 pounds per ton, organic 50 pounds a ton, P is 47, and potash or K is 51, a little over. So what's that mean on the dollars per pound basis? Like I said, the neat thing about this is we're going to dive into what the dollars per pound per nutrient is. So if you're going to talk about your total nitrogen component within the litter, you're going to be right there a little less than $3 a pound for nitrogen, 52 cents for phosphorus, and then 48 cents for potassium. That probably doesn't make much sense right now to you guys. And this, man, you can read it, yeah. So what we did is USDA reports the South Carolina fertilizer prices across the 2024. And we were able to pull that down for the entire state, for the entire year, came up. So I don't know in your part of in the country, but our only source of phosphorus really in commercial grade fertilizer is diammonium phosphate. We don't have any triple super anymore. But so we're talking, and then you got urea, obviously, and then potash. So it kind of dives in here, you can see, where's the example here? So potash, you're 40 cents, you're 40 cents to the pound, 40 cents to the pound, sorry, if you're using commercial blend fertilizer, well, you're going to be about 48 cents on what we found with the litter application. Conversely, though, you're going to go to phosphorus, you're 52 cents, but if you're going to use your DAP, you're going to be over here at 96 cents. So obviously as a source of phosphorus from an economic standpoint, if I'm talking to a producer, litter's the way to go. The nitrogen component, that's something that we've wrestled with. I don't have this in here. I'll just say it and we can have a discussion later. The interesting thing from a nitrogen component is you've got those 2 different components of nitrogen in litter. From an economic standpoint, how do I price that? Because it's not comparing apples to apples. You put out a pound of urea versus a pound of litter, it's not the same release. You follow? So that's something that I'd like to look at moving forward. So real quick, I like doing this. It's a lot. I'm an economist, but um, so what does this all look like? So Bermuda hay production in South Carolina, our soils lab says if you've got sufficient phosphorus and potassium for 5 tons, 4 cuttings, blah, 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 you need 240 pounds of nitrogen, 25 pounds of phosphorus, and 75 pounds of potash. Okay. So I'm talking the overarching goal. This is what the overarching goal of this program, this research is to bring this out to the community. If I go here and I use the Clemson University fertilizer calculator program, real neat. You can put in, I put in urea and DAP and potash, the prices that I reported on that previous one. Here's my requirements, 240.25, and it kicks me out blends and what their price per acre would be for that blend, right? So to fertilize this Bermuda hay production field, I'm at $180 an acre. Okay. What happens if I use litter? This is the neat thing about this program. You can plug litter in the price in, excuse me, and it'll come out. The important thing to note is apples and apples is what I tell people. If you're going to be putting out litter and you're going to want that 240, 25, 75 split, you're going to need to hit that 240 equally between litter application and granular application. So the 1,000 score here is hitting all my metrics. I'm over here with my litter application, 2 tons to the acre of litter at 2440. I'm spreading myself. 1,000% score based off of the analysis. I'm still having to put an additional $65 out of urea to meet that N requirement. So the thing I talk to producers about is we can put out enough litter to meet our N, but you're going to be way over on your P and K, and you've got to be mindful of that. And the nice thing about being an economist is when I start talking dollars and cents, it gets in their pocketbook and then they really start listening to me, or they pretend to at least. So future, as I said, this is the first year of 5 years that we'll be able to gather. And really what we want to do moving forward, what I want to do, as I said, it's all about programming and talks and education and getting the kind of making people think, challenging people. Sometimes that's uncomfortable. But really kind of start getting this information out here and putting that dollars and cents to that unit fertility. It's 5 years data set development. At the end of the day, we want to try and develop a hedonic model where we start looking at not just NP and K, but with our litter analyses, we're diving into, we've got micros, we've got all moisture, pH. I mean, we've got all that kind of information within those samples that we have that have the dollars tied to them. So it really can provide some really neat information moving forward, I think, and put some dollars and cents to it. The one thing I'd really like to hammer on, and I mentioned it, that seasonality of that price we saw, and I didn't really touch on that much because it wasn't significant in this study, but looking at that spring to fall in our heavy row crop area down mid-state, our spring is where we're fighting for peanuts and we're fighting for cotton and we're fighting for corn acres to be putting litter out on versus putting it out on hay pastures or forage. In the fall, the only thing we're fighting is small grains, mostly, and small grains are not heavy in the state. So develop more robust pricing data set, that whole thing. One last slide. Interesting thing here, left-hand side, reminds you this is money going to producers in this program to do these. Would you have enrolled in Climate Smart Grow in South Carolina if only technical and educational support was provided? Not surprising. The smallest piece of that pie is people said yes. So if there's no money tied to it, only 15% of the people engaged in this project would have actually taken on this role. But here's the encouraging thing. When the Climate Smart Grow in South Carolina project ends, again, 2028, will you continue your enrolled practices? 81% said yes. So there's an interesting lag or stickiness to that I think shows beneficial. And I think with that, I'm done.